Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, we are loaded up. Hope the bye weekend was restful and fun for you. As back at it, here comes Indiana for homecoming. What a weekend for 2 a.m. and plenty of NFL. We'll get to all of it. Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, Big Red wrap-up man. Jay Bird will be with us here in about 20 minutes. Get his take on the Nebraska football season to date and some of the changes moving forward. What lies ahead for homecoming this weekend. And then Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, a Monday with Charlie shortly after 5. Plenty of time for open phones for you as well. Can join us at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email the show, Chris at hailvarsity.com. You can also find and comment. We're streaming today on ESPN Lincoln's Facebook and Twitter. Also streaming live on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Can follow us, Chris Schmidt, that's me, at Schmidt_radio, or Elijah Herbel at Herbal Essence. And that's how you get in touch with us. So, no Nebraska football. Clemson and Wake was a great ball game. You saw Baylor and Dave Aranda do some work in Ames. KU and Lance Leipold is undefeated. That sets up a showdown in Lawrence to stay undefeated with a Iowa State team that's licking their wounds. And then there's Kansas State and Oklahoma. I want to start there because even though Nebraska was off this weekend, Nebraska a topic of conversation. Night game, shootout, Oklahoma, Kansas State, right? Could OU be as good as advertised after waxing Nebraska on Big Noon kickoff? Well, they've struggled against Kansas State. What would Adrian do with his mulligan? Well, what he did is take a bow. Cue up Madonna, circa 94 if you want. Underrated light rock song. Scowl at me. Go ahead. But Adrian took a bow.
Oh, that's the song you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Not the other ones from 94 that had the parental advisory sticker.
Okay, yeah.
You were thinking of the other ones.
I was thinking of the one... the one that Weird Al Yankovic parodied into Like a Surgeon.
Oh, that was in.
I was like, that's a weird one to bring.
That
up.
was in '84. No, not that one. But it was kind of, well, dare I say, the first time you get a ranked road win at night, and Adrian pulled that off. And of course, you had Husker Nation react, and thank God most of the reaction was positive. Thank God most of the reaction was supportive. But then you're going to have the frustrated Nebraska fans, which you have every right to be frustrated with this season and this era. But I don't know that you throw darts at a guy or talk him down. I was happy for him. I was so happy to see him smile. I was happy to see him thrive in that moment. And are you going to read in? Did you read in? Did you take away some silence? And that silence is dude that didn't get it done at Nebraska for a multitude of reasons. Got it done with a change of address in the same spot that he almost pulled off an upset win a year ago. And to me, it just speaks a lot about prep and coaching and timing. You know, Adrian was a guy that last Saturday night looked like freshman Adrian. I mean, he looked fast and confident, and you weren't able to rattle him. And a big reason to that was K-State was ready. They were good. They were hungry. I mean, after getting whacked by Tulane and him getting called out after a bad quarterbacking performance. He had a good bounce back. And right now he's healthy, and he's got a defense, and he's got special teams, and he's got Kleinman down there. He has a lot of support. And I think it's fair to say, and we said it all along in his career, you've got to take care of the football better. Yes, that's your job as quarterback. He didn't always do that, but he had a lot of things going on around him, i.e., from a management standpoint that's above his pay grade, that just showed. You saw a difference in Kansas State and their program in those moments in a big game, and then you just saw Nebraska never, ever get over the hump during the Frost era. Rarely. I mean, I'm not going to say they didn't have a handful of comeback wins or an impressive win, but those seemed to dwindle after 2018. I think of the Michigan State game, right? I think of the Ohio State effort. But Adrian's best supporting cast was in 2018. You go to 2019, what do you have? You got a defense that's probably a year or two away, as it looked like. You have an offensive line that's not close to what 2018 was, and you didn't really have a running game. You had a running game that was reliant on a third-round slot receiver that left because he was being asked to run the football because you didn't have a running back. The Mo Washington experiment blew up. And then you had the quarterback controversy. You had constant injury, right? So I think he was able to play confident, and he got coached up to be confident heading into Norman last week by Kansas State. I think he had a little bit of looking over his shoulder in Lincoln. He had the McCaffrey experiment. And then you had a guy always playing with injury that would miss time and try and gut it out to help the team. And it's hard to play your best when you're dinged or you have a busted jaw or you need shoulder surgery or your knee's jacked. And the long and short, as I ramble, is good for Adrian. And I hope you as a Nebraska fan feel the same way. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but I'm just saying, as a guy who put it all out there for you, the fan, for 4 years, it was good to see him finally exercise a demon.
And Adrian actually spoke post-game interview about what led to his success and why Kansas State just has seemed to have Oklahoma's number over the past couple years. I think that's 3 wins in 4 years. So here's Adrian post-game talking about the win.
You know, I can only speak to our program, and, you know, I'm really proud to be a Wildcat. I think our culture is special. I think Coach Kleinman and just the stuff we're building here, it's different. You know, I think we come and play with an edge every game.
That says a lot. And it's not shooting arrows. It's not throwing anyone under the bus. It's just different, and it's really good for them to go pull that off. Now, there's a swagger and confidence, too, that you have with K-State because they have OU's number 3 out of 4. Shouldn't, based on recruiting rankings. I think K-State has, a handful of 3-stars. But back to the whole development program, OU's loaded with 4 and 5 stars even after Lincoln Riley rated them. OU's not supposed to lose that game. They may get scared in that game, but if you're a betting man, I was kind of curious because of K-State's history. You were getting 12.5 in Kansas State, and you go win outright. That's impressive. And maybe some of you are over it. You've moved on. It's so what? It's Adrian. He's not here. Goodbye. That's fine. Totally get it. But that was one of the bigger wow wins of the weekend. It was one of your own that did it.
It was that feeling after the game of what could have been. That's the feeling I had whenever you sit there.
Or why wasn't it?
Yeah, and it kind of sinks in that this is not a guy who was cursed in crunch time. It felt like he was cursed in crunch time, but there was a lot of factors out of his control that led him to play poorly in crunch time. And I don't want to sit here and put it all on the coaching staff because there were mistakes that Adrian made from trying to do too much. Maybe it's a guy who thought he had to do too much because of the talent that was surrounding him. I don't want to get too far into that, but it was just that feeling post-game of, man, what could have been with Adrian at Nebraska. The talent that you saw his freshman year, the talent you saw on Saturday night made you go,
they didn't miss. They had their right guy.
Made you go, this felt like a guy that has the talent that if you place the right pieces around him, he could have led Nebraska to a Big Ten West title. And from pieces around him, I go everywhere from offensive line, all the
back,
talent you're giving the ball to,
teams.
defense, special teams, coaching staff, play calling, all that. If you had the right pieces around him, Saturday night showed me this is a guy that you could have built a winning football team around. And I think that's what sticks with Husker fans and why no one's mad about Adrian, because I think Saturday was the proof that, you know what, his struggles at Nebraska didn't all fall on him. Some of them did, but they didn't all fall on him, and he took some arrows that he didn't necessarily deserve during his time.
Dude, he took a lot, and I'll say this, when you look at Adrian Martinez, I can't jump into his mind, and it's been a while since we've interviewed him, like pre-Boulder 2019. But think of, well, I got to go get this done. If it ain't gonna get done unless I get it done. Think about that mentality, because special teams didn't get a stop and there's a kick return to take momentum back, or defensively they didn't get a stop or didn't get a takeaway. Or, man, I just turned the football over. Now we're down 7. I got to go make a a 2-touchdown pass here, right? How many times did dude play with the lead? Rarely, and he's always. It felt like he was always chasing or pressing, and that was some of those worries were able to be put on hold, or at least there was more of a trust factor where he was at Saturday night. You hear coaches always talk about, trust the process, trust the guy next to you. Easier said than done. I don't know how much trust there was, or was he just directed to go get it done? Nate chimes in here on the stream. Mismanagement of his time at Nebraska on full display. It's just a shame. It's just a shame. Is this good? And he looked great. I'm happy for him. Sad to see what Frost missed with him. Well, I think he identified the right guy. He just didn't have enough pieces around him, or he didn't always deliver. Who's with us on the horn?
Got Chris on the horn.
Chris, thanks for calling. Welcome into Hail Varsity. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, great show, but the pity party for Mr. Martinez is goofy. He had tons of talent around him. Robinson for a couple of years, Spielman, offensive lineman who playing in the NFL now. What's his bucket last year that came in from Montana or whatever and got 1,000 yards?
So are you telling me that 40% of his dropbacks last year was just him holding on to the ball too long?
A lot of it, and there's a lot that go. I mean, don't forget they were talking about replacing Adrian before this game against Oklahoma because he played so average or less the first 3 games. So, he was able to finish this one, and good for him. Mm-hmm. Good for him. But there's a lot that goes in. If he doesn't know how to read the protections and stuff like that, and if he's not getting rid of the ball when he should be. There's a lot more that goes into it. A lot of those linemen are in the NFL and are going to probably get an NFL pension. So, he is the most important person on the offense. A lot comes with that.
Chris, I disagree. Chris, I disagree that he had throughout his career at Nebraska the supporting cast, specifically in the run game. He had that Saturday night at K-State. He had that at Nebraska with Divino Zigbo. But we didn't have coaching to develop players. That's what we have to get is coaching to develop players. Adrian didn't develop, and let's wait and see another couple weeks if he's one game wonder or not.
Yes, exactly, and I hope he's not, but we'll see.
Chris, appreciate the phone call. Thanks for dialing up.
Well, one thing I'll say is just look at the amount of talent around Adrian that made it on all Big Ten teams. Voted on by media, voted on by coaches. Last year, I'm pretty sure offensively he had 0. Austin Allen made second team. One.
Yeah, Austin.
One guy. That was all Big Ten last season.
Mm-hmm. Did Hymas make anything?
I don't think so.
Juergens. Juergens made something.
Juergens was third team. Was he coaches or was he media?
Might have been coaches.
But that was it there. 2 years ago, the COVID year, I know it was 0. Mm-hmm. 3 years ago, let's go back to 2019. I got it pulled up here. You got...
Spielman was a shadow of himself in 2019.
You had 0 All Big Ten selections in 2019. And then back in 2018, his first season, you had Stanley Morgan, who was second team with coaches and media, and then Spielman, who was third team with coaches and media. But that is it from 2018. So during his entire career at Nebraska, he had 4 teammates offensively make all Big Ten teams, which if you look around the other teams in the Big Ten, the teams that compete,
2 to 3.
Four players in 4 seasons would be ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You're getting 2 to 3 per season. So that's where my argument comes from. He didn't have enough talent around him. Sure, you had one guy on the offense last year who's going to go make himself an NFL career. Awesome. You can't win with one other guy.
Now, what do the O-lines look like? And Juergens and Hymas, but really not at the same strength together. And you had a lot of young O-linemen around you last year. You know, what could have been or why wasn't it, right? We'll take more of your calls. We'll hear from Jay Moore coming up here on Hail Varsity Radio. Charlie McBride also spends some time with us as well. And are we going to take this call?
Yeah, let's quickly get to Tom. He's got one quick thought.
Tom, thanks for calling. Go ahead. Tom, go ahead, bud.
3 cheers for Adrian. The offensive line he had Saturday night was hands down better than anything he's ever had here, which is kind of a shame. And shout out to our superstar fan, Bashawn Jackson. Bashawn's been...
Appreciate that phone call. Numbers to get in at 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. We say hi to Black Shirt Husker NFLer, co-host of Big Red Wrap-Up. You watch him on Nebraska Public Media Tuesday nights. Jay Moore with us. Jay Bird, we rewind, and last time we talked, partner, it was... all before we headed to the land of Guinness and Green Mountains. And now we fast forward to the bye week that's over. Nebraska sits 1-3. A, how have you been? B, could you imagine this start for Nebraska?
A, I am happy to finally chat with you guys. It's been a minute, but I'm good. Everything's good. But B, no, I don't think anyone foresaw what was coming. I think, people, we're fine with 3-1 up to this point. You win your first 3 games, you lose to a really good Oklahoma team, and you get to a bye week and you say, okay, how can you, win the next, these next 4 games? Because they're obviously, you look back pre-Northwestern, this was the easiest part of your schedule, and I say easiest, I mean, it's just the most winnable, it's the 4 most winnable games, you have in the schedule for this part of the season and for the rest of the season. So for them to go be 1-3, and then obviously just the dumpster fire of what we've been through, with firing of Scott, firing of Chenander, and into now, it's really hard to kind of project, right, what the rest of the season is going to look like. I think it's just going to be a week by week basis, in my opinion. I'm really excited to see what these guys, what the attitude, effort level, those sort of things are going to look like after a bye week. I really hope, Mickey Joseph, I hope he, found out who wants to be here and who wants to play and who wants to get better, and kind of separate from those guys from, okay, who's happy just being on the team and saying, hey, I like being a part of the Nebraska football team, but I'm really not too concerned with with getting better or making other people better, because that does come down to it too, because there are a lot of guys that, play scout team that, are just trying to make it through instead of, trying to make other people better as well. So I hope they kind of figured that out, this last week, and I guess we'll see here in a few days when Indiana comes to town.
Jay Moore is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, with the defense, Bushy pretty well, playing for him. What can he do to this defense? Second part, how I don't want to say bad, but how good, I guess, let me flip it around. Where can this defense go? I mean, they're last in the league.
Yeah. I don't know. That's I don't know how. I mean, it can't get any worse, right? I mean, they can't tackle. They're not physical. They can't cover anyone. So in my opinion, it's just, I think Jay Foreman said it best when he was on Big Red Wrap-Up with us last week. You got to fine-tune everything. Just figure out what everyone does really well. What does Ty Robinson do well? What does Garrett Nelson do well? What does Hendricks do well? What does Reimers do well? What does Farmer do well? What does Newsom do well? Find what everyone does really, really well and develop a defense around that. Now, that's a lot easier said than done because there's some things, you can never call there's never a perfect defense. I mean, there's always a weakness to a defense. You just hope you can rally and make a play, for a 4 or 5 yard gain, or they incomplete a pass or whatever it is, or you have a guy step and make a play when they do try to attack the weakness of the defense. So I hope they just they recognize that, they try to fine tune it, take out the gray area, make things black and white. Okay, this is what we want. This is how it's going to be done. If you're not going to do it, then you're not going to play. There's no more. I mean, I don't know the depth. We haven't seen a whole lot of other guys play, and I'm wondering to see if there are some guys that kind of stepped up here in the bye week that said, hey, give me a shot, because obviously who's been playing so far, they haven't been getting the job done, period. So I think that's where you can kind of go and look at it. But I think Bill will bring some energy, bring a new voice. He spent some time around Dave Aranda, so maybe he can channel that, some ideas, just something. It's just, it's tough. You're not going to make wholesale changes in a matter of a week. Where I think they're going to, what you can do in a bye week is, okay, let's look at how we were doing things. Okay, let's fine tune that. Let's make our techniques better. Let's make, we're going to practice more physical. We're not going to practice really long, but we're going to get after it in a short period of time. So, hey, we're going to defensive line. We're working hand placement, pad level, footwork, getting off of blocks, rushing the passer. These are what we're doing. Linebackers, we are button and pressing guards and tackles. They come up with us. We're getting off blocks, and we're running on tackling, and so on and so forth. As you go online, this is what it's going to be, and this is the non-negotiables. This is what's going to be week in and week out for the next 8 weeks. So just fine tune everything, and like I said, it's not an easy task. The defense is a sieve right now. So like I said, practicing more physical, fine tuning what you want these guys to do, identifying what they're able to do well, and try to just kind of mold that in together with anything you can, and see how it shakes out, against Indiana and in the rest of the season, just to make this season somewhat respectable.
Jay, you started off that answer by saying what is sometimes famous last words, it can't get any worse, but statistically, you might be right. Nebraska, 127th in the nation out of 131 FBS teams in total defense. That's 514 yards per game. And as you said, it's not all going to get better in 1 week. So what can the offense do to take a little pressure off the defense's plate on Saturday?
Yeah, you might see, I think Mickey might have already alluded to this, slow down a little bit. You're probably not going to see a whole lot, a bunch more tempo going forward. That just puts your defense in a bind, especially if, they've been on the field for, 6, 7, 8 play drive, and all of a sudden offense goes 3 and out in a matter of 30 seconds, and then they're back on the field. You got to be able to slow the game down. If you got to be able to work hand in hand. If your defense is struggling, you can't go tempo. I think we saw that. I think, Frost talked about that a lot first year. They didn't go super fast because he didn't think the defense was ready for it. And then, over the next couple of years, defense got better and better. But, this year that's not the case. So I think you'll see it slow it down. You'll see them run the ball a little more. And it'd be interesting to see, over the bye week, if they're going to start implementing a little more QB run game. You do get a little +1 in the mathematics of it all, and I like that ability to do that when you do struggle up front blocking, and just keeps the defense a little honest. So it'd be interesting to see if, you might see a little more Logan Smothers, into the offense, or Casey Thompson's going to be doing more of that, or even, a Chuba Purdy, as we saw towards the second half of the Oklahoma game, instituting a little more QB run game, just to get to that +1 and keep the defense a little more honest, and keep, some longer sustained drives, and keep that defense off the field, and hopefully they can gain some confidence by getting some stops. But I think just slowing things down a little bit will help that defense in the long run.
Jay Moore's with us, Big Red Wrap-Up, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, a thought with the coaching opening. Interim is Mickey's tag. Interim is Bushy's tag. and that's where things go, and you have a chance to make your case with 8 games left. That said, it's a national search by Trev. Who are some guys you like? There's been 1,000 names out there, but who are a couple that trip your trigger?
Yeah, I think my 1A is Dave Aranda. I like what he's about. I like what he's done. He's been in the Big Ten. He's been at LSU, had success at LSU. He's had success obviously at Baylor. I like his mentality. He's able to, just defensively. I like having a defensive-minded coach at Nebraska. I think that just suits us better in Big Ten play, in my opinion. We need to, just stop keeping. You can win games. You need to win games. 42-38 in this conference. You can win a lot of football games, 21-17 to or like 13-10 or whatever it may be. So I like that. I do like Matt Campbell. I like him a lot. I think Lance Leipold, I mean, he's an option. He's not the most favorite one. I think he obviously has the Nebraska ties. I think there's something to that, and obviously how he has built programs in the past is very noticeable, and I won't take it that lightly. I just don't know if I think you just need a guy that is very, very proven. That's not to take anything away from Lance. I think what he's done at Kansas so far this year is they're fun to watch. Mm-hmm. Their offense is great, but their defense isn't stopping anyone either. That concerns me a little bit. That's exactly what Frost was doing at UCF. Their offense is doing everything, but their defense couldn't stop anyone. They just happen to score a couple more touchdowns. Won a lot of football games, 45 to 40. Obviously, there's some other ones. I think I don't know if the Matt Rule from Carolina is getting much love. I think there's an opportunity there, and obviously Urban Meyer. I think I'm a little torn on both sides, on that one, but there's plenty of options out there. And Nebraska definitely has the bank accounts to get people's attention and make them think about it. I think all those guys will everyone they're going to talk to, they're come there with a blank check and say, hey, what is it going to take? Look at these, $160 million facility we have scheduled to open this summer, so on and so forth, and we'll see how it shakes out. But I think Aranda, Matt Campbell, are probably in my top 2, I would say so far.
Did you cross much with Lance when he was at Nebraska?
Yeah, he was. I can't remember what his title was. It was
GA or something.
It was that, or like he might, because I can't remember if he was even like director of football ops for Solich, like in 02, 03, around those lines or something. He was. I don't think he was much more. I don't think he was in a huge coaching role, to be honest. I think he was here. I want to say he was more of in an operations type deal, but obviously the guy was really not knowledgeable and super smart in what he's doing, and taking Kansas to where they are. I mean, they've beaten, went to West Virginia and won, and went to Houston and won, and then took care of Duke. And Duke's not a half bad football team. They beat Northwestern already this year, so he has my attention. He does have my attention. I kind of want more of a defensive-minded guy. I think fits in the Big Ten very, very well, and that would be, that's a Dave Aranda. I'm pretty sure Matt Campbell's a defensive guy as well. So it's going to be interesting how it shakes out, all the rumors, everything like that. But I hope Nebraska just can somehow, I don't know, they can make a bowl game this year. Can they find 5 more wins? I don't know. That seems further and further away from the discussion as the years go on, but crazier things have happened.
And now back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Jay Moore is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, and Jay, Any under-the-radar names that you have your eye on for this Husker coaching spot? I mean, there's Husker fans out there that want Mickey, and I'm not calling that under the radar, but it may be a little bit more unlikely based on where this team is at right now and what he would have to do. So maybe you can include him in there. But I've heard some Husker fans watching that performance from Wake Forest on Saturday against Clemson saying maybe Clausen would be a good fit at Nebraska. Are there any under-the-radar guys that you look at and you think are a good fit?
I don't. I just think that we're at a position right now where I need. And I don't even think Campbell's, a surefire guarantee. He's just, he's done great things at Iowa State. I'm talking. We need someone that has done, has been a part of great teams, knows how to win, and has a proven track record of doing that. My pulse and everything is I don't have anyone that's under the radar. I can't think of the guy at NC State. He's
Doran.
I'm playing really well. Doran, yeah, that's a guy that maybe, but I just I want to. My biggest thing is a guy that can coach, and that's what I tell a lot of people. I want a guy that comes in here where he does not get bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with the pageantry of being at Nebraska. Nebraska, the pageantry is great. The fan base is awesome. You're the only show in town, but also it can be a deterrent because you get caught up in a lot of stuff. People want to be a part, want to bring you out to this. Come do this. Come play golf here. Successful people in the state want to be a part of, they want the head football coach and the head basketball coach around them if possible. And, hey, let's take this private jet here to go fishing, go golfing. I want a guy here that can just completely remove himself, and all he wants to do is win football games.
So Saban?
He just wants to say that again. So yeah, that's one of my main things is because I think that's been part of the problem with Scott is he had a hard time saying no to those things, and I would too, but I'm also not trying to be a head football coach. So I want a guy that's just so engrossed, in making this football team better, and he's not going to get caught up in all that stuff, in the politics and all those things. And he can say no, and all he wants to do is just, grind, get better, recruit, develop, leave no stone unturned to get this program back to where it should be. So if that's Dave Aranda, great. If that's Matt Campbell, awesome. If that's Dave Doran, great. If that's Lance Leipold, so be it. So that's just kind of where I am. I just want a guy that's 100% football, and 100%, trying to get better, and nothing else is going to get in the way of doing that.
The old junior high PE teacher, right? Just give me a whistle, give me some bike shorts, and let's go practice football.
Right.
And keep practicing
Correct.
football. Jay Moore is with us, Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay, last thought, reaction to Adrian Martinez, his coming-out party in the Big 12. What a ball game for Adrian, man. It was so much fun to watch him thrive down in Norman.
Yeah, that was. I watched the whole game. That was fun to watch. We've been fortunate enough to see some of those games from him. And then unfortunate enough not to see as many wins like that, but just to see him execute, take care of the football, make some big-time throws, scramble, and then, and just have a chance to win a game like that because there were so many games where Adrian would perform so well. I think it was back to the Michigan game last year. He performed so well, then has that fumble late in the game when, you're down by 3, driving to score, and that was going through my head. Watching that game, I was thinking, okay, we've seen this Adrian before, but we've also seen somehow he stubs his toe, or he makes just a little bit of a sloppy mistake that costs him a chance to win a football game. And he didn't do that, so it's fun to see. It was fun to see, a good game plan put together by Kleiman at K-State, and obviously K-State has OU's number. I don't know what is that. They've won 3 of the last 4
3
meetings.
out of the 4, yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty impressive. But it's fun. It was happy for him. Happy that he could go down there and get a win after what he's been through here. And I know some people were upset that he left, but happy that he finally got some success. And the kids worked hard. The kids worked hard and has put in the time, and he just, needed to change the scenery, and happy that he could go down there and get it and get a win. And other than the Tulane loss last week, K-State is going to be with Deuce Vaughn. He is the real deal. So having that 1-2 combo back there, K-State's going to be tough to defend, I imagine, all year long.
Do you think his performance yesterday was more about what K-State did for him, or was it commentary on what was around him at Nebraska? I asked that because our old buddy Brock Eward's like, I wonder what Coach Frost and Mario Verduzco were thinking right now, right after that run. Yeah,
well, everything we saw, that Adrian did well. He did really well here at Nebraska. It just we didn't win football games. There would be he would go off on a run, a scramble, and he would get hit and fumble it, or he would make a bad throw, an errant throw, or a ball would get tipped and the defense would intercept it, or the defense couldn't get a stop when they needed to get a stop. We've seen that play out of him before. It just never really equaled a win. We've seen good play from him, and there have been wins, but unfortunately it was against a lesser of opponent.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the big games, whether it was at Oklahoma last year, at where Michigan came here last year, just all those close losses we've had against really good opponents. He's played very well at times. He always had that one, whoops, that one, mess up, that interception, that fumble, that just threw a total damper on how he played. The guy could go for could be 25 of 30 for 285 and ran it 12 times for 102, but he had two turnovers. He had a fumble and interception that cost drives, or interceptions in the red zone, or turnovers in the red zone. So things like that just always hampered him here. Otherwise, it wasn't nothing like earth-shattering. I thought that we've seen him make those plays time in and time out at Nebraska, just never equaled wins. So whether you can chalk it up to coaching or getting your team prepared the right way, and I do think coaching matters, and you saw it in that game. But it was nothing. I didn't see anything any different than what I saw at Nebraska with Adrian. They won, and we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that in a long time against a not only a top 10 opponent, but just on the road against a ranked opponent.
Jay Moore's with us. Jay, enjoy Big Red Rapid this week. We'll get in touch soon, bud.
Yep, you got it. Thanks, boys.
Gotta love Jay Moore with us. Good to spend time with him. Reminder about your friends at Red Zone Tickets, selling fun since 2001. Do you have a game you want to get to? You want to go check out Nebraska, Indiana? How about Husker Volleyball? Red Zone Tickets buys and sells tickets for all types of events. That's Husker football, Husker volleyball, NFL action, Creighton hoops, concerts, theater, CWS, and RedZoneTickets.com, where you log on. They are local. They are from Omaha, and that local source, an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. For those memories you want to create, checking off the bucket list, one place to go, RedZoneTickets.com.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Charlie McBride, Mr. Black Shirt, an hour away, or hold on, Slappy, 10 minutes away from Uncle Charlie. Then open phones till 6 for you. Hail Varsity is presented by Currency for all your equipment financing needs. Go Currency. Some emails to get to on Adrian. We'll change that up a little bit, but plenty of reaction from Nebraska fans with one night in Norman. Adrian able to knock off number 6 Oklahoma. Who's with us on the horn?
We've got Tad in California with us.
Tad hanging out in California. Tad, what part of California, bud?
We're out here in Southern California, just outside Santa Cruz, about 28 miles outside of Los Angeles.
Now, that's awesome. We're having some of your weather here today.
Okay, well, that's the only thing good about California now, the weather. But listen, I just wanted to say this, that our coach right now, Mickey Joseph, is our man. We need to keep him. We need to do nothing other than to go out and get 5 or 6 or 3, whatever it may be, of awesome recruiters and awesome coaches, and we just start from the ground up. We bring back the option. We got the quarterbacks for that, and we go out and we start pounding the football game because we do not have the defense that's going to do anything to stop anybody. And the more that we can take time off that clock and pound the football is what we're going to do. And I think wholeheartedly that he's going to start recruiting those guys. He's going to get those corn-fed boys back out there, and we're going to bring that football program back. But I think Joseph is the man.
Tad, appreciate you taking time to call us from sunny SoCal. And, yeah, it's going to be a line of scrimmage adjustment for Nebraska moving forward if they want to crawl up off the mat for sure.
Amen.
Thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it. Good to hear from Tad in sunny Southern California.
Just outside Santa Cruz. I've been to Santa Cruz, actually.
I've been to L.A.
Well, Santa Cruz has a great boardwalk.
A lot of years ago. So this is an email from Sean, as he deems it, somewhere in Franklin County, somewhere in a soybean field. So, Sean, thanks for what you do. Farming. Yeah, I mean that.
Harvest season right now.
Absolutely.
Busy time.
But Sean goes on to say this. Can send your emails, too. We're taking, and we'll get to all of your emails and phone calls on Adrian. So he says, good afternoon. I hate to be rude, but it's my opinion Frost and the little violin player ruined Adrian. It's good to see Adrian move on and become the player he was always capable of becoming. He just needed a fresh start and some good coaching. That was from Sean in a soybean field in Franklin County.
Good take. And I think that the best part I like about that
little violin player.
But the best part of that take is the fact that he did separate what we saw from Adrian at Nebraska from what we saw on Saturday from Adrian at Kansas State. Is a player that has made strides. It's a player who's changed. It's not the same guy. It's not that same Nebraska quarterback going out there taking the field for Kansas State and beating Oklahoma. He's made strides. I think that is an important part of the game on Saturday that needs to be taken into account for. I like that email.
No, I think it's right on. We'll dive into what we saw and what you were able to separate. And, we're out at baseball Sunday for fall ball for junior. And that's all the parents wanted to talk about, man. Like the whole world, the whole state didn't have Nebraska football, but they had a former Husker doing his thing against a hated rival that just puts you out like a Marlboro Red the weekend before. Coach McBride's next. It's Hour 2 with Hail Varsity.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. So we'll hear more on Adrian Martinez via Oklahoma. More of you chiming in via email, via StreamYard, and yes, the phone calls will continue. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, a Monday with Charlie. We say hi to Coach McBride. Coach, is it 75 and beautiful where you're at?
No. No, it's very windy, probably about 60, and I keep my car back in a person's garage who's a near neighbor. And as I got out, it's just straight down pouring rain, so I didn't change. I'm still soaked.
Man, so you are you're wet, you're windy, and I'm telling you how nice it is in Nebraska during fall. Forgive me. Well, dry off, and here we go. Are you recharged? How'd the bye week treat you?
Good. I had a good week. I missed a game. I hardly I watched TV, but I didn't know who to watch, so I kind of saw some of all the Big Ten schools, and of course I saw the game
at night in Kansas State, and I watched that. But, other than that, it was a pretty calm weekend. My wife didn't even yell at me one time.
Well, there is no Nebraska on, so you're okay. You're okay.
Well, usually she's saying, "What are you yelling now for? Did they lose contain again?"
Oh no. Well, we'll talk Nebraska, Indiana in a moment. But you mentioned you saw Oklahoma, Kansas State. That's what a lot of Nebraska fans have been clamoring about because of what Adrian did. What'd you think? What'd you think of K-State's win in Norman? I mean, Oklahoma looked unbeatable just a week ago.
Well, I think he's changing the environment is number one, and when you talk about here Nebraska, it's all if he was here and all that stuff. I mean, if it went bad, it would have been I'm glad he left, and so on and so forth. So. Who cares? But people have to realize that we have another coach. We still have guys on the team that came in that I'm not sure everybody even knows everybody. And if you listen to all the Big Ten schools that are really winning, the kids played together for a long time. They love each other. They're playing hard together, and this and that. And I think our kids are trying hard. I wasn't real happy with toward the end of the game, but I'm going to not forget about that and I think it won't happen again. But I saw a few guys loafing and not doing their jobs. But that's the things people have to remember that all these changes and all these things, it just doesn't happen like, everything's perfect now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough deal they're going through.
It is tough, and I think you're right that environment's such it helps determine success, right? It also helps determine lack of success. And you have Nebraska fans, I think the majority I bumped into were really happy for Adrian. Not to belabor the point, because Nebraska's moved on without him, and he's moved on without Nebraska. But it was really cool to see because you saw so many glimpses. But he looked like his old self, Coach.
Right. He did. He looked like he was having a good time, and he had a good bunch of guys around him, and. That a lot of times those kids understand each other better than we do sometimes, and what people are going through. And I know he had a nice thing to say about belts and being his best friend. I saw a little deal he did on, and he said after the game they were the first ones. Brody and him talked, after the game, and he said he was my best friend at Nebraska. And, you can tell that he did the right thing for himself, and that's kind of what, when you get to be that age, that's what you do. You look at the quarterbacks, some of the quarterbacks in the NFL now that are top guys. A couple of them, I think, transferred their senior year, and now they're great players. So who knows?
Coach, I want to ask you about Nebraska now. The defense is trying to get better. You have Bill Busch in charge. What are some things you expect or anticipate from Busch, or just what you see personnel-wise? What can Nebraska do to get better here moving forward?
Well, I think I don't know exactly, the learning part of the defense before, but Bill will make things try to make things a lot easier for the players, because you can't play if you don't know what you're doing, and he probably needs to start at the bottom almost and work his way up, but he can't put in more than they can handle. He won't change a lot. I mean, he can't. Mm-hmm. He's familiar a little bit with what they've been doing, and I don't think, and I hope there aren't too many new type of maybe new calls, maybe some things that fit. He may be more of a pressure guy than a lot of people have been used to. That's one thing. But the one thing he wants them to do is do things that won't hurt each other and hurt the team. And that's by making things simpler.
Charlie McBride is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. It's another Monday with Charlie. And Coach, when you look at this defense, I asked a similar question to Jay Moore back in hour one, and that's this team is 4 away from being dead last in all of FBS football in total defense per game. They're allowing over 500 yards. They're ranked 129th right now. And you talk about fundamentals, you talk about simplifying the defense, but just in terms of what you see on the field on Saturday from this team's athleticism and physicality, what kind of task does Bill Busch have in front of him in terms of trying to get these guys ready to go? Do you think it's an athleticism problem, or do you think it's a coaching problem, I guess is the heart of my question?
Well, right now, by saying make things easier, I think players a lot of times didn't look like, if they were gap responsible teams, which most of them are, and I'm assuming there is some responsibility there, then we were having some problems. And I know Bill's going to try to do something right now to let guys know before the play even started, as far as the guys in the running game, who's got what gap and so forth. And the other thing is we've got to get off the ball on offense better, and we've got to be more consistent. On defense, we've got to be able to separate. We've got to be able to find the quarterback. I used to tell the guys, about getting off the ball. How do you want to get off the ball? I said one thing is every play's a pass. Play the run on the way to the quarterback. But you have to read the blocks. You have to read the blocking schemes. You have to learn what they are for that particular team, and that's why I think the outside backers, one of the things they have to learn are the angles of the remaining back, the angles of the trap blocks by either a tight end coming in motion or a guard pulling. They have to know the angles that he's on to tell him whether it's a hook block or he's going to try to kick him out or he's going to turn up and seal. And that makes a difference in how you play. So those things have to be repped in practice over and over and over again. And, you do it every week. No matter whether you think, well, they don't need any of that. Well, they do. They need it. They need it so that one thing you want things to happen is it goes in their subconscious and they just do it. And you'd be surprised. All of a sudden, kids look at the film, and I've had guys say, "God, I didn't even know I did that." And well, you've been working on it for 2 years. I think you ought to start knowing. He said, you're just doing. You're playing, and now you can go full speed and not worry about anything. And the other thing is, you're going to make mistakes. Okay, go 1,000,000 miles an hour making it. You'd be surprised how many guys filled the wrong gap but yet made the tackle. And I said, well, you got a minus. Well, Coach, I made the tackle. Well, you got a plus for that part of it. But there's times when you're going to make some things. You can't go into a pout. Okay, you help the guy up. Next play, knock him back down again. But you just have to keep a mentality. It's just kind of a physical mentality about everything. You have to, especially each side of the ball has to think while they're playing. They have to think of their angles they're taking in pursuit and stuff like that. Now, I saw some things last week, and nobody would notice these on TV. You're not playing. The guys coming down, chasing. I've seen some guys just wandering around just so they looked like they were trying. They weren't. But this whole thing is you've got to get to the ball, and one of the reasons is, what if he fumbles? And if you go back and look in the mirror the next day and you say, well, you know what, I really didn't try as hard as I could. Maybe if I was there, I could have gotten that fumble, or I could have blocked for that interception, or I could have done, something to help it play, make it better. And so those are the things that they have to bring up and have to, let players know about. And they're responsible for each other. They're responsible for their defense, and they're responsible defensively for the offense, and vice versa. And and the other thing they might think about is I've always said that you play for the people that love you. They'll never let you down. Fans can say all that garbage they want to say, and that's fine. But the thing is you represent your family. You represent your little brother and sister or cousin or whatever. But all those people are people talking to them about you. So how are you going to act and how are you going to play?
Charlie McBride's with us on Monday with Charlie. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, when we talk about this football team, they've had a week to reset. They've had a week to get better. And Mickey and Bush and the rest of the staff have had a week to try and pump them up. Not falsely, but this team needs confidence. They need something good to happen. What's the task like for guys that are down there right now to get this team believing in themselves?
Well, I think just a matter, like I said, a matter of cutting things down. So when they're doing teamwork and everything, things are running smooth. They're having fun doing it. This game has got to be. If you're not having some fun doing it, it's really hard. I mean, it's you're always worried about something. You're doing something, and that's what you want to take out of the players and put some good thoughts in their minds. And the thing is how hard do you try? I mean, my feeling is, and I don't like to say it because we haven't won a lot of games, but if we had been winning, I'd say, well, we don't have to win this game. But what we have to do is play as hard as we can play. And on every play, we have to focus. We have to play as hard as we can play, and the score will take care of itself. You don't have to worry about that other stuff. Just play as hard as you can, and that's what's going to happen. But, you have one guy does not have control of the whole game, but he is responsible for doing the right things because they will support the other guys.
Well said. Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, we will check in with you next Monday. It's homecoming. It's Indiana. And should be a pretty good ball game on Saturday night.
Well, I think Indiana's kind of a little bit in the same place, so it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, it could be a lot of points. I know you might cringe at that.
Well, we'll say a few prayers for the Huskers, I think, this week. But I just think that they got the right people there, and it just has to get a little more repetition and keep going, and things will get better. All right.
Appreciate you on that. Get dried off and get your game face on for Saturday.
I'll do that. Okay. My wife will hide.
Yeah. There he is, Charlie McBride. Coach, You take care. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye now.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt with us, Charlie McBride. A Monday with Charlie on Hail Varsity. We'll post that up and on our on-demand section, ESPNLincoln.com. And get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Well, we're also streamed live on Hail Varsity Radio's Twitter handle at HVarsity Radio and ESPN Lincoln. More of your emails and calls, open phones here till 6. Can join us at 466-3776. Hail Varsity Radio is presented by Currency.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity, presented by Currency. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Numbers to dial up. Open phones here till 6. Adrian Martinez, a topic of discussion. Brennan chimes in. If you look at the stats on Adrian's completion percentage, it's identical to what he was last year at Nebraska. His average yards per pass went from 9.4 last year to 5.4 at K-State. His rushing is near similar to his Nebraska stats. But here's the difference. He's only been sacked 4 times through 4 weeks at Kansas State. He was sacked 27 times at Nebraska last year, over twice as much. Bottom line, a healthy Adrian's a good Adrian, and a good O-line wins ball games. Jim emailed in with this little nugget about Kleiman and Kansas State's offensive line. It says, FYI, the O-line coach at K-State is named Connor Riley. He's a Creighton Prep grad, played and coached at UNO. His lines have always been very good. Ding, ding, ding. I think we have a winner. And this is your question, because it goes to a bigger question, and we can go all sorts of directions with this with the Big Ten. But what team or player changed your mind this weekend? And I've got a slew of teams that have me intrigued. Coach Barnett talked about how good Minnesota is, and they went into Sparty, and I think Michigan State's a shell of what they were a year ago, clearly. But Minnesota is one of those teams that builds, and they build on the line of scrimmage, and they look ready to go get in a bar fight with about anybody. They look like your favorite. Illinois, Wisconsin will be pretty juicy this weekend because that's maybe a race for second. Wisconsin's pretty much reeling right now. I mean, they got dismantled by Ohio State, which is going to happen. But Wisconsin's got a ceiling right now, and that's not to judge them, but it just feels like, okay, even with a Russell Wilson-type quarterback, they still topped out at 10 wins with him. That's over a decade ago. A few years ago, they won a BCS ball game and went 12-1, finished 5th in the country. Had a little bit more navigatable schedule that year, and then they followed all the preseason hype with an 8-5. They've always been just okay at quarterback, right? Where you look at Adrian and Nebraska, they were asked to be great, difference-making versus complementary to sometimes difference-making at quarterback, okay? I mean, that's been your issue. But when it comes to player or teams that changed my mind, you were sniffing out Oklahoma early. My knee-jerk was, damn, they're really good. But as history shows, Northwestern, 1-3, their easy win on the schedule, Nebraska. Georgia Southern took the L after they beat Nebraska. And you look at Oklahoma, who looked unbeatable, fast and furious and physical, in Lincoln in a primetime ball game. Well, again, it says more about Nebraska. It's a question I had a week ago, right? Was it them or us? And I don't say us like I putting a mouthpiece in, but the Nebraska football team. And it is clearly a Nebraska problem right now. And I think when you look at Adrian, I think a lot of it was a Nebraska problem versus an Adrian problem. And Brennan highlights that on the offensive line. But as you watched Saturday night, and I think the curiosity factor was mighty, what's going to happen? I was having a beer, watching. I was like, if I had to bet, does he make a mistake or does he pull this out? It's like, you know what? Football gods have just been lined up against him. History and trends say there's going to be a mishap. Either he gets blindsided or he'll fumble or there'll be a pick or something will go wrong. I would have bet the other way. I would have bet that something was going to go wrong versus him dominating, taking over the game. And on 3rd and 16, that 55-yard, that's his signature moment in college. It's like his first play of his career at Colorado. He busts contain and goes 55 yards and somersaults in. And you step back and go, first impression is, damn, that kid's going to be great. And he had really wow moments. He's had a boatload of highlights. But for him to go do what he did Saturday night was impressive. Was it hard to watch for you as a Nebraska fan, or was it great to watch for you as a Nebraska fan? And I thought it was great to watch. It wasn't hard for me to watch. And I know there's a lot of Nebraskans out there that are just like, man, what could have been? Because you're still in the midst of this chaos that is the football season. And it's even murkier now because of the uncertainty and the transition.
And I think it was enjoyable for me to watch because my favorite moments from Adrian at Nebraska were all those times when he had confidence. Whenever he trucked a defender into the end zone and does that little Conor McGregor walk over top of him. Like, the confident Adrian Martinez was when he was fun to watch at Nebraska. Whenever I, watching these Husker games, thought Nebraska was in it to win these football games, when Adrian had confidence. And I saw a full 4 quarters of confident Adrian Martinez on Saturday, and I think that's what made it so fun to watch. And that was the big difference. I mean, you had Brendan go dive into the stats and say, well, his performance wasn't all that different. But I would disagree with that and say, from an eye test perspective, it was completely different. Just a guy who looked like he never was worried about making a mistake. And that's what the difference was. Was that Nebraska, I, watching these games, was worried about him making a mistake. And it almost looked like, from a body language point of view, watching him, he was worried about making a mistake late in the game. He never looked like he had that swagger when it came down to that 2-minute drive to win a football game.
Trust. It's trust in himself, and it's trust in others.
And the Kansas State offensive line, I do believe, much better than Nebraska's. And I'd go as far as to say that Nebraska is making a bowl game last year, making a bowl game this year. I mean, Nebraska looks really bad this season, but if they have a competent offensive line, if you go transplant Iowa's offensive and defensive lines onto the field for Nebraska.
Kansas State's.
Kansas's. Teams that shouldn't have dominant offensive lines, teams that should not have better offensive lines than Nebraska based on I hate going recruiting rankings, but based on just the type of guys you have, body type, type of guys that should be getting NFL looks if they're developed properly, just based on the natural gifts that they have in terms of their size, in terms of their weight, in terms of how they were able to move coming into Nebraska, but it has never translated.
We're getting back to management. Mm-hmm. We're getting back to management, and we're getting back to development.
Mm-hmm.
And just all that went wrong with hires and all that went wrong with just the scope of the job.
And to put it simply, I don't think that Kansas State, from a talent perspective, their 22 guys they put on the field is all that much better than what Nebraska puts on the field.
They had Cade Warner on the field, and he was making grabs and getting open against OU's first-team secondary.
Mm-hmm.
So why is Cade Warner, why was he, I mean, not that he starred here, he didn't, but he was a go-to from a comfort level standpoint his first year and in Adrian's first year, and then it was milk carton time. And then he winds up at Kansas State making some plays to get open. You're not going to burn you after the catch, but it's like, oh, there's always a better option, a faster, a better athlete. Well, he was getting the job done against Oklahoma. I mean, you looked at Wandale once he moved on. Wow. Savion Morrison, my brother texts me. Is that the kid from Oklahoma that was at Nebraska? Yeah, he's killing it down in Kansas now. He's not a starter, but he's helping out the offense. I mean, it just seems like everyone who gets out of here goes and has thrived somewhere else.
And that's why I don't think...
Not a large number, but some recency.
There's a lot of doom and gloom, but I don't think that the job of getting this Nebraska team to a point where it's respectable, where it's competing for the Big Ten West, I don't think it's that big an ask. It's not going to be easy, don't get me wrong, but when the same talent, as you said, is going other places and producing, the problem is not getting the talent to Nebraska. And that's what the national talking heads are going to tell you. Well, you can't recruit to Nebraska. Well, the same talent that's coming to Nebraska is going and killing at other places. It comes down to
some select examples.
But it comes down to making the most of that talent. And I just don't think that for the past 4 years, Nebraska has been getting the most out of their talent. They need to find a coach that's going to get the most out of that talent. And if you can do that, it's not that long, painful rebuild that some Husker fans are bracing themselves for. It comes down to getting yourself to a point where you are passable on the lines of scrimmage. And if you can do that, you should at least be making a bowl game. and then you start filling in other talent around a passable to good offensive line. Now you're competing for the Big Ten West.
Well, you want to talk about a redemption tour. That's the theme moving forward. Does K-State keep on rolling with Texas Tech coming to town? What does KU do with Iowa State knocking on the door in Lawrence after they got beat by Baylor? Baylor and Okie State rock and roll this weekend. So the other things, back to the what changed your mind this weekend in the world of college football. I'm subtly in on the Big 12 and the Pac-12. I've seen enough, even though Oregon survived barely. I've seen enough from Washington State to know they're a damn good football team. And that is a bit shocking. I know Oregon State didn't get it done, but wow. They gave USC everything they wanted in a Big Ten tribute, 17-14 ball game. So I think your leagues right now that are standing out are the Big 12 and the Pac-12, despite their instability right now. They're good leagues this season. I think if you're real honest with yourself, the Big Ten is bad. Purdue barely winning. Illinois could be, and that's not a shot at Illinois, but we didn't think Illinois was going to be a West contender, maybe ever, but this soon. Minnesota is the clear cream of the West. Iowa is getting better. But how about Maryland? I mean, Maryland lost that ball game because of the opening turnover. I know Michigan did what they wanted running the football, but the quarterback play was serviceable. But Maryland, man, they are fast and they are talented on offense. They may not be going away. Maybe they spent it all this Saturday. I don't know. The other thing, too, is Iowa City's hosting Michigan. Iowa is 5-1 against top tenors their last several outings.
Maryland, I'll go the other way. They changed my opinion on Michigan. I'm not sure I'm sold on what Michigan has this season.
Okay, so it was more about Michigan. All right.
Personally,
fair.
I just think there's only one team worth a damn in the Big Ten. It's Ohio State.
Yeah, and that's rinse and repeat. Let's hit some NFL next. Phone lines open.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good to spend time with you. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by Currency. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Last thought here on what team or player changed your mind this weekend. We've touched on Oklahoma. We've touched on the Big Ten. We've hit on Adrian plenty and Nebraska. Were you, I want to say offended, but you look at Brock Huard's comments in that moment on that stage of the game, and and I think Brock, covering Nebraska as much as he has, he's been to our studios, he's been to Lincoln 100 times between Fox and FS1 and the ESPN. He covered a lot of Central Florida. He's done Big Ten work, right? He wasn't over in Ireland, but he's had the last 2 week zeros for Nebraska. So he's been, from a national standpoint, him and Pizzo are the two guys that have been around this program, you could argue, quite a bit. And he said what was on the mind of so many Nebraska fans was, I wonder what two former coaches, the head coach and the position coach, are thinking right now in his moment of triumph and redemption. And a lot of Nebraska fans just right now going, man.
I think it's probably got to be a same feeling that a lot of Husker fans are having. That
well, he spoke to the emotion of the moment for a state, right up Tornado Alley, two states away.
I'm sure Frost and Verduzco also have a weird mix of pride and disappointment. There's this weird mix of you're happy for a guy that put it all on the line for the Huskers week in, week out, played with a broken jaw, represented the state really freaking well. And that's my main memory from Adrian is even when things weren't going his way, he represented the state great.
Stand-up guy.
Good
ball player.
And there's got to be pride in that, of seeing that guy that I'm sure Frost and Verduzco were both close with, seeing that guy go out and succeed and go win a game on the road against a top 10 team. There's got to be pride in that, but there's also going to be that little bit of disappointment knowing, well, he could never do it for us. And I say that from the shoes of Frost and Verduzco, saying he could never do that for us. There's got to be disappointment in that from those two as well. But I think that
or the other side of the coin is Adrian going, man, look at this. Got a line, got a run game, got a defense, sort of, and I can just go let it rip, even after Tulane, right? Even after getting called out and challenged. Well, we talk, what's Mickey been like harping on here? Accountability. Well, Kleiman pretty much held Adrian accountable. That was garbage against Tulane, dude. It's a team loss, sure, but you got to be better than 5.4 an attempt or whatever it was. There was some accountability down in Manhattan after the Green Wave came in and ruined your unbeaten season. And you respond the right way in Norman. So, are you physically ill from watching Denver last night, or are you hanging in? You got to tell me what's going on with Hackett, because so far they may be 2-1. They are not letting Russ cook. I thought Miami.
They don't let Russ cook.
No, man.
That's my take after 3 games. Hand the ball to Javonte Williams. Let him run. Stop letting Russ cook. It's terrible.
Just let him go be him. And I wonder if it's Russ trying to be different, Russ's take on things, or if it's Hackett, because they've looked bad, but they're still 2-1. Horrible loss, and the boys in the desert set the world up. It was weird anyway to see the line what it was with Kansas City and Indy. All my betting buddies are like, dude, stay away from that one. Chiefs were favored by 5.5, and Indy won outright. Jacksonville's murdering people, which, wow. Vegas is over. In Miami, despite Tua getting, quote, dinged on a sneak where he couldn't walk or find a huddle, that Miami defense, despite a butt punt, found a way to win and went outright over Buffalo, because Buffalo looked invincible. What a difference a week makes in the wild, wild NFL.
Yeah, let's start with the Broncos first. No bias here from me, obviously. I think the problem with the Broncos right now is they're trying to run the offense that Russ had in mind of what would be a good offense for him, and not the offense that was proven through years and years in Seattle of being the correct offense for him, which is lean on your run game. You have a guy in Javonte Williams. He's not Marshawn Lynch, but he actually kind of runs the ball like Marshawn Lynch, where, I mean, safeties and corners don't want to go up and try to tackle this guy.
Well, great might be a stretch, but you got a fun defense, a capable defense in Denver.
It's a defense that wreaks havoc. Mm-hmm. Not the best defense in the NFL, but
they'll make plays for you.
If you get yourself in 3rd and more than 5,
you're done.
You're going to be in trouble with the Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory combo with a pretty strong secondary as well. You're going to be in trouble. The formula to beat the Broncos is establish the run early and often. We haven't seen a team that can do that just yet this season. I think Seattle was, I don't want to call it a fluke, but that was a little bit tough going and playing that crowd week 1, knowing Russ was coming back to Seattle. That's tough. I can write that one off. Hackett is still learning how to be a head coach.
Why hire that?
Because I liked an article from The Ringer earlier this week, or earlier last week, I should say, where they said that was their bait to try to lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver, and it didn't work, and now you're stuck with...
You're stuck with a hire?
Well, you're stuck with 2 guys that don't quite...
They're not gelling.
No. And I don't think that's the problem. I do think the problem is that Hackett is it's almost the Frost problem, where he's focusing too much on the offense, not enough on being a head coach, but kind of swallowed his pride and hired a coach that could help him out through his deficiencies. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not discouraged by the Broncos. You see this a lot. Quarterbacks, you got to gel with your offense. It takes a little bit of time. I'm definitely not encouraged though. We'll see. The AFC West is still looking pretty up for grabs. Elsewhere in the NFL, love the Jaguars. I think I called it earlier in the offseason. I said, I know there's some bad rosters. People want to kick the Texans and the Jaguars, but while they're down, but I said I thought the Bears might be the worst team in football. Commanders had a terrible performance this weekend, too. Let's not forget that.
You want to talk about, let's take out our hate for Wentz, former team. I mean, he was sacked, 6 times, 7 times, 4 times in the first half. Philly's looking great with Jalen.
I mean, the top 2 teams in the NFL right now probably look like Philly, and I know Buffalo lost, but I'll still probably put Buffalo in the top 2. That probably, if you were doing power rankings, it's probably Philly and Buffalo, with Miami right there as well.
Yeah, I think Miami might come back to earth, but they deserve the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They've been pretty.
That's exactly what I think.
Pretty fantastic. Lamar Jackson continues to be insane. Dan tweets in when it comes to the Oklahoma K-State game that finished about 10:30. He is telling us, Schmidt, Elijah, of course, you're assuming Frost was still awake at the end of the game.
It's a low blow.
A little bit off the top rope. Steve says, if you have to admit it, Adrian looks really, really fast. He does look freshman year gear, so to speak. So
I think it's that confidence, as I was talking about a little earlier. I think it's that confidence.
Absolutely. Nebraska needs a triple shot of that for Saturday night. They're all big. This is very big for Nebraska fans, for engagement, for Mickey. Mickey will talk tomorrow. We'll get a Tuesday set up as we wind down Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, and we are presented by Currency.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you one final time on a Monday. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by Currency. For all your equipment financing needs, go Currency. Big thanks to Jay Moore and Charlie McBride. Podcast will be up Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Video portion on the Hail Varsity YouTube page. Subscribe to that. And always get in touch with us. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com or find and follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence, and at HVarsity Radio. Reminder to get buckled up, hands on the wheel, eyes and mind straight ahead. The driver has one job: to drive. This message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. A lot of thoughts on Adrian Martinez today, his coming out party, his redemption tour, as it's been titled by some of the national media. Good for him. Wow ball game for Adrian. And it might have been tough for some of you to watch, but I think it was a lot of fun for many of us to watch him perform and do well. Kevin emails in Chris at hailvarsity.com. Adrian had a head coach that was hired and promoted to a level of his incompetence. We hoped he could run a big program, but he couldn't do it. In my company, we call him a coaster. Not the best talent around AD, but no one coached or developed him either. Trev knew exactly what he was doing when he restructured Frost. Better days ahead. Texas also lost. Ha. That's from Kevin down in the heart of Texas.
Can I ask, I'll pose this question to you here, just to kind of bring together everything we've been talking about over the past 20 minutes. What was more painful for you this weekend, watching Adrian Martinez do that to Oklahoma, or just attempting to watch Sunday Night Football?
Oh, Sunday Night Football was much more difficult to watch. No, there was no pain. There was like some intrigue and excitement for me with Saturday night watching OU and K-State. I mean, shootout, it was a fun ball game anyway, whichever way it went. But for him to make the plays in crunch time, that's awesome. That's awesome for a guy who's been a grinder, and he's tried to do it the right way, and he's played hurt, and he's tried to do too much at times, and he's tried to be a one-man band. So to see him get over that hump, good for him.
I can't believe you didn't enjoy the punting display from Sunday Night Football, though.
I got a kick out of the fact that Tirico and Collinsworth both wanted to jump in front of a train.
Well, it was an exciting. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie. It was not.
I liked watching Randy Gregory go throw tight ends and tackles to I like Randy. I love watching him ball.
Well, you had Garoppolo pull a Dan Orlovsky too. That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Were you even still watching the game at that point?
No, I watched all of it. No, I saw him get out of the end zone.
You want to do a quick steak and a beer for Monday Night Football tonight?
Yes. What's the line?
Well, we got Cowboys and Giants. Is this one in Dallas or is this one in New York?
You're the one who's wanting to bet, you should know these things.
What?
I know Uncle Andy's got his
okay.
his Jason Witten jersey on right now.
It's pretty much a pick 'em. It's in New York. The Giants are a 1-point favorite. I'll let you go where you want.
What's the over-under?
38.5.
I think you got to go over.
Okay.
And give me the Giants to go 3-0.
Okay. I'll take the Cowboys to win outright, 23-21. So over and the Cowboys. You got over and the Giants. So I guess we'll just go. I'll take the Cowboys. You take the Giants.
You got a backup quarterback versus Daniel Jones. Really not much of a choice. Coach Kaz tomorrow. Mitch Sherman tomorrow. Mickey Joseph comments tomorrow. See you.